Welcome to the Australian Property Investment Podcast. We tackle the big questions in property investing. Our guests are industry experts, and we're fortunate to pick their brains on the challenges that investors often encounter when growing their property portfolio. Welcome to the Australian Property Investment Podcast. Let's start investing. G'day everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Australian Property Investment Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Christie David, and I run a mortgage broking business called Atelier Wealth, where we help property investors start out and scale up their property portfolios. A centerpiece to one of the mantras that we have in our business is helping you make confident property decisions. And so whether that's buying an investment property or buying your home to live, confidence is something that I think is probably underrated, but probably the most important ingredient when it comes to pulling the trigger on trying to put that sold sticker up on the board. So what we do with each and every episode is bring in someone that we know personally, someone that is best in breed, someone that lives, breathes, eats, sleeps property and has it running through their veins. And today's guest has all that and more, and a fancy hat to go with it. Hamada Alameddine from BuyerX. Welcome. How you doing?
Good, mate. Good. Thanks for having me.
Not at all, mate. Thanks for being here.
Pretty keen to have a chat.
Absolutely, mate. We've known each other for a little while.
Always interested to talk about property, so we get along. We've worked together before, so
yeah, mate. I appreciate it. And we were saying before, I mean, you put out a little bit on socials.
Yep.
You've got kind of got a great community, but I think what you've also got is results.
Yeah.
And I can say that kind of hand on heart because I've seen what you've done. I've seen the
Definitely.
results you're getting for your clients. So that doesn't happen overnight, and especially when you niche to a particular area, especially in Sydney.
yeah, of course. And I think that comes down to time in the market, right? A lot of people that are buying their family home spend quite a bit of time in the market, and when you're doing what I do for my clients, day in, day out, you start becoming entrenched in that marketplace. And I am very specific with areas that I help my clients buy in, and the people that I work with. I predominantly help own occupiers. I don't do too much investor stuff in Sydney's inner west, so...
That's the beauty of the inner west. It's high owner occupied. It's got such a high attraction rate that people want to call that area home. So I guess even from an investment perspective,
Definitely.
it holds its own because high owner occupied appeal, hard to get in, property prices hold their value.
Absolutely. And that's on the back of really good schooling, good connectivity to the CBD. It's inner west has always been working class area, I suppose, to our let's call bigger sister in the eastern suburbs. So it's much more tight. It's a much tighter knit community, I feel, as well. Each suburb has their own village, and that village is quite tight. I predominantly sort of work out of Leichhardt in Sydney's inner west, and my kids go to school there, and you walk down the street and you tend to know everybody. So it's a great place to live. And as you were saying, it's the sense of community is what draws a lot of people to the inner west, I feel.
Mate, spot on with that word. And that's, I think, one of the most underrated parts that come from buying a home. I think people come to you and I going, man, I'm worried about the rates, I'm worried about the repayments, I'm worried about, how much I'm going to pay.
Of course.
And I said, that will all go away once you're in that home and you can do whatever you want to that property. People come and go as they want because you're so welcoming, you're not renting anymore. There's a sense of, I guess, that warmth that comes with having your own home.
Absolutely.
And it's this feeling that I don't think gets talked about enough, which is when you buy your own home, there's this feeling that comes with that, and no interest rate, no how much you saved on the purchase price, stamp duty. None of that seems to matter anymore.
And that's where a lot of the anxiety from buying a home comes from. It's coming to the point of transacting or exchanging on a property.
Yeah.
Once people have exchanged, their whole demeanor changes and everything.
Yes.
All the reservations they had leading up to buying the property sort of go out the window, and the things that they didn't like about the house leading into buying the house sort of go out the window, and they can start working on changing that and helping people distinguish those feelings while we're buying a home is what I really enjoy doing, right? A lot of people at the moment feel that the market's going crazy, which it is, and a lot of people have been waiting for the market to drop, which it hasn't.
Yeah.
So expectations are a huge thing that I work with my clients, making sure I manage those expectations so that we can afford what we're out there looking for. Now, there's no point going to the market with, for instance, $1 million trying to buy a $3 million home. It's not going to happen. Unfortunately, a lot of people fall into the trap of getting on that merry-go-round where they feel that their money can stretch a lot further than what it actually can do. So expectations are huge. Working on compromises is something else that people need to get accustomed to very early on in their property search. You're never going to find the perfect home. I don't care who tells you or what they propose to tell you that you will find the perfect home. You won't. You're always going to have to compromise on something, and that could be not having parking. It could be being a bit further away from where you want to be. It could actually be a suburb away from where you want to be. You need to work within the means you have. And a lot of times those means are money related. And if you haven't got enough money, you need to go and find the product or the home that will accommodate the budget you have.
Correct. Yeah, mate, you've nailed all the above. I think what we want to have a chat about today. So normally we start with the 3 Ps about yourself personally, professionally, and your own property journey as well.
Sure. What would you like to know?
Personally? I mean, you mentioned you got 3 kids. That'll keep you pretty busy.
From a personal point of view, look, I've not really from a property background, so to say. I ran a tree removal business, an arborist by trade.
Nice.
Came into...
Actually, I've got a tree that we need to talk about afterwards, so we'll chat about that later.
No problem. Still got connections in the business. So I sort of moved into property 5 years ago, based around that. My family, my wife and I had been together for quite some time. We just started a family. Our eldest daughter's 7 now, and I found myself working a bit too much on the business, and I needed to transition into something with a bit more work-life balance where I could sort of pick and choose the times I work. I'm quite busy now, and I still struggle with time management, like every business owner does, or entrepreneur does, I suppose. So 3 kids, love property, love my kids. So I try to keep them separate, but oftentimes they're not. Not born, but lived in the inner west most of my life.
Nice.
Still there now.
Yeah, which gives you like this unique perspective.
Well, absolutely, So it's
boots on the ground.
Like back to real estate. It comes down to relationships when you're buying a property, right? Like getting access to stock that doesn't exist to many other people, or getting ahead of people in negotiations because you understand how those sales agents tend to work and how to position yourself in a negotiation. I digress again, but
that's all part of it.
Absolutely.
And then I guess your business where you're saying, look, we're busier than ever, and it's like, hang on, we've had 12 rate rises and the market's supposed to be down, and you and I were talking before, it's like we run off our feet and we tell that to people, they're like, I don't get it, what's going on?
Exactly. And it's a fairly touchy subject for a lot of people. Obviously a lot of people are hurting with the rate rise, especially homeowners and people that I work with, and I think the biggest pain comes if you own your home, you're now forking out a lot more money to live in the home, but if you're trying to buy a home, your budget or the money you had set aside or whatever your
borrowing capacity
is dwindling. Each time it goes up, it feels like, or it doesn't feel like, but people's borrowing capacity is going backwards, but property prices are still going up.
Spot on.
Right? 12 rate rises in, 12, 14 months, whatever it's been now. Don't quote me on that.
Last April.
Exactly.
Record lows, and here we are a year and a bit later.
I've been, buying property personally for 20 years, and it's the weirdest market I've ever been through. Generally rate rises, prices come down with them, right?
Puts a handbrake on things.
It slows it down at the very least, but it's not slowing down. Like I've seen properties just last weekend sell, $1 million above what I thought they were worth. Won't mention them, but property is very resilient at the moment. And if you're not doing everything you can to get into the market, you're going to remain trying to get into the market for a long, long time. I know people, I've spoken to people 12 months ago that were waiting for the cliff to come and property prices to drop. Those people are still waiting.
Well, but it's in a worse position.
They're $1.5 million is worth 1.2 now. So they've gone from looking at a small townhouse to now an apartment, right?
Yeah.
People in the upper end, I don't feel are feeling it all that much more. A lot of people that I work with have higher incomes. A lot of people in the West have higher incomes. People are looking to buy homes. Average, average
to be able to
purchase price
afford a house in there, you've got to have circa income. We're working on multiple about 5 times your income.
Yeah.
So you've got to be earning, to buy 1.5, you've got to be earning about $300K, thereabouts.
Exactly right. And then when you talk about people that are buying a home that's 2.5 to 3 mil plus, things are tightening up for them, but it's not affecting, I find, them as badly. And that's why property prices are so buoyant still in that segment. But you go back to 1.5 and below, it's very competitive. Obviously with the stamp duty rebates or whatever they're called, the stamp duty changes that came through that really kicked in the first home buyers sub 1.5 because they were avoiding the stamp duty payment up front. So that was going back into property prices. And then we started finding a property that's worth 1.3 selling for 1.5.
That's right.
Crazy offers, same day, just take 1.5, right?
Correct.
And so that's created this little false market in that price point. So it's made it even harder for people to buy.
Yeah.
Now, what I worry about is that stamp duty rebate's going to get removed from July 1st,
That's right?
Yeah. So those people that have paid too much for their properties, if they're going to sell in the next year or two, they're probably going to lose money because I feel they overpaid. So it's a tricky market. It has been, always will be. But just right now, in the current economic climate that we're seeing, I feel that it's a very tricky, process to try and buy a home. Yeah. I think having the right representation in the market and the support in the marketplace is where I'm bringing my clients a lot of value.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get access to a lot of off-market stock, and agents are calling us about properties that are quite quiet. A vendor's thinking about selling. We might have one opportunity to get through, or they might have a very short agency agreement. So they're not going to go on, blast it online and have 400 people line up. They're going to call their 3 or 4 best buyers, generally a buyer's agent, who's got briefs in hand that service
highly qualified buyers ready to go.
That are looking for that specific property, and they'll bring them through and try to get a deal done. So that's why a lot of people call me and say, this property came up and we've been looking forever, but it never came up online. It's just come up sold. I guess somebody else bought it off market.
Correct.
So it's hard. If rates keep going up, they're talking about the fixed rates ending, and that might create more stock. But I feel it doesn't matter how much stock comes to market, there's going to be just as many buyers still waiting. Like you go to any open home or first open home for a campaign, if it's a good property, there'd be between 50 and 100 people lining up to go through it.
Nuts.
And it's the same for rentals as well.
So just on that point, and I think part of it, and we'll deal with a different energy, right? Because clients like, okay, we're going to go look at this property. All right, perfect. We'll do a property report for them, which is well off the mark anyway. Yeah. Then we go, how did you go? They'll come back saying there's anywhere from 50 to 100 people. It was bananas, and they got 20 minutes to look at this property. It's nowhere to move. But then as the campaign goes, what was listed as the price guide then starts to change. You're laughing. Let me finish this. So the price guides now start to go up, and then the sale price blows everyone out of the water. And the clients are just going, what is going on? And they're a cross between demoralized and besides themselves, because they're going, I can't pick this. What happened? So tell me, like, from your perspective, how does this?
I don't know. Look, you've got to take guide prices with a grain of salt, I feel. They're there for a reason. They're there to bring foot traffic through the property.
Correct.
There's stipulations or, there's legislation on how they guide here in New South Wales. Other states are completely different. I'm not familiar with their laws, but, over here people can put a guide on a property. I think it's 5 or 10% within the range of what they put on the agency agreement. Now, we'd never know what's on the agency agreement because they don't have to make it public. So guide's there to bring the people through, right? 100 people walk through the property and they identify 10 really good buyers and start working them up in price. And then the guide follows that expectation and the feedback they're getting. And before you know it, the guide's gone from 2 million to 2.2 to 2.3 to 350, and then it sells for 2.7.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is all in the meantime. There's an auction date listed, but the negotiations are happening pre-auction, and it's like, hey, mate, suddenly it's just sold underneath you.
Look, absolutely. And if you're not ready and your due diligence is complete and you're ready and waiting for a phone call that a negotiation is going to kick off, or if you're not ringing and making sure that you're in line to get a call if a negotiation kicks off, you're going to miss out.
Yeah.
You're going to miss out. But if there's enough good buyers on a property, most agents will run them to auction.
Yeah.
Unless you can really blow them out of the water with a strong offer. A lot of people aren't going to do that if they don't understand the price of property before an auction. Then you're going to stand there with a paddle in your hand and hopefully have a go on Saturday morning. So it's difficult. And most people that come into my circle that I've never spoken to before, the first thing they talk about is how disgruntled they are with what agents tell them throughout the process, but more so what the guide is, and how they spend money on a contract review, a pest and building review, or a strata report, and other bits and pieces while you're going through.
The emotional journey that comes with, like, we've seen it, we've gone to the open homes, we've fallen in love with it now, and either got sold before we had a chance to make an offer, or went to auction and the first bid blew us out of the water, and now they're kind of packed up and gone home, and it's like, now we've got to wait for the next one, and just the friction that it causes. They're back on
the hamster wheel again, right?
Yeah.
And they're on with many other people.
Spot on. So one person can buy it, but there might be 15 other bidders.
Exactly.
14 other buyers are now ready for the next same home.
And they're going to be a lot hungrier and a bit more prepared and probably more determined, because if they were first time, I guess, not first time buyers, but first time they've been in the market, and they've now realised, well, hang on, guide was this much, sold for this much. Maybe I need to go look for different property that's guiding less so that I can actually afford it. And then they're getting ready and they're getting better at buying, right? Yeah. But property prices are still surprising people. But it's understanding the market. It's area specialisation. It's being in tune with the market you're trying to buy in, making sure that you've got everything ready to buy when the time comes to buy. And that could be at auction, that could be before, and that could be off market. But you need to always be buy ready, and that's something I work with very early on. Once I've worked out expectations and align that with the people's budget, and then we can talk about compromises, and it could be busy roads or no parking or a different aspect or whatever it might be. Once we're all in tune and on the same page, I'll go into the marketplace and start searching for property. It could be online, it could be off market, but whichever way it is. If we walk through a property today, we're going to be ready to buy it the same day or the next if it's a property of interest, because you just don't know when it's going to happen.
That's exactly
or if it does happen.
Well,
agents will often say, no, it's go on auction. Before you know it, one of their best buyers drops off and they've got two other buyers, and like we better get them on board before we lose them, and we've only got one buyer, and then we're not going to pick up the traction we need at auction, right?
Yeah.
And then that goes into a whole different kettle of fish. And if you're not experienced, you're going to get eaten up. You try and negotiate blindly when agents telling you somebody's made an offer of this much. You need to understand how to negotiate that. Well, on auction floor, you're bidding against somebody face to face.
Which is where the beauty of sometimes auction is. Like, you can see your competition, what they're willing.
Right?
It's exactly right.
Exactly.
So some people hate auction. I'm like, let's reframe this a little bit. Auction is the most transparent way. And I personally, when we went to buy at auction, I was like, oh, this is driving me nuts.
Yep.
But there's no games.
No.
You see your competition. You see how much they're willing to go by. You can
value of the
control
property comes through.
negotiations at some point as well. And it's like, that's fair market value because someone was willing to pay almost that amount that you were
right.
as well.
Exactly. So if you're buying it under competition, it's fair market value. When you're negotiating behind closed doors and not directly with other people, then you sort of could be bidding up against yourself for all you know. That again comes down to relationships, knowing how the agents operate, knowing buyers in the field. Like, I'm studying other people buying. I go to auctions that I'm not buying, but I go and see who's buying other property and who's left the market and how much people's budgets are, and that all sort of formulates into the strategy that I implement when I'm standing there negotiating or when I'm standing there at an auction.
Yeah, nice one.
Okay, so I've done 400 or 500 auctions in my time, and everyone's different. Not one are the same, right? And it's about reading the person you're bidding against and the body language and the auctioneer's body language and a whole bunch of things that go into it. It's not just standing there and hoping for the best.
Yeah.
Even though I've got set budgets, I still want to save my clients as much money as possible. Just because you got the money doesn't mean you have to spend it all. And that could come through bid increments and the way you bid, when you bid, how you bid. So, body language, a whole lot. So it's cool. I still get an adrenaline rush every time I go to auction. I still get the flutter, and it's exciting. And it's
like sport, right? I mean, you don't know what the outcome's going to be.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I love it. And when you walk away after buying a property, especially when, like, it's been a pretty tough auction, it's quite rewarding. I'm also seeing the relief on my client's face.
Mate, I tell you from first-hand experience.
Definitely. So
I think we spoke about buyer fatigue. It's like at that point, that's where sometimes you see those silly prices. Is like someone has just paid well and truly over and above to make this pain go away. And it's like, I just want this to end, make this stop, and I'll just pay whatever it takes.
But then they wake up on Sunday morning with buyer's remorse. Do you know what I mean? I've heard it many times before where exactly what you just spoke about. Buyer fatigue kicks in. Their emotions get the best of them, or their ego, or their pride, or the husband or the wife, or whatever it might be, and they get at each other, and before you know it, they've spent more than they probably have, but they've secured the property, and then come Sunday morning they wake up going, "What have we just done?" Right? But they've also driven up the price for every other property that's about to hit the market.
Yeah, correct.
Because the expectation of that vendor is now where that property sold.
Standard. Yeah.
And that's what's feeding our market at the moment, right?
Yeah. So buying in a competitive market. So someone's listening going, you're telling me what I know already or what I feel already, rubbing salt in the wound. So I guess the outcome, or trying to get to the solution, which is how are you buying in a competitive market?
I think it comes down to understanding the market. I think that's first and foremost understanding your market and being as active as possible. A lot of people
being
on the ball.
Yeah.
Making sure that no property gets slipped through my fingers. Right. A lot of people search on Thursday evenings and Saturday mornings and hope that an agent will call them with an off market. I'm calling 50 to 100 agents a week. I'm emailing 500 of them. I'm texting them. I'm following up. I'm going through opens and asking them what's coming up, what's in their pipeline, what photo shoots are coming up. What vendors can you think of that we can go and target? What's in your property management? Property management side of your business that we can go talk to any landlords that are thinking about selling. It's not just waiting for a property to come to me. I'm very active. Do you know what I mean? And that comes from understanding the market. And I keep harping on about it. It comes back to relationships. And if agents know what I'm looking for, it's always in the back of their head, right? Or I'm hoping it's in the back of their head. So when something does pop up that's, off center, that's not going to come to market, but, they need to find a quick buyer for, or they can call me and say, look, this might be coming up. There's a suit in your client. Should I go pursue it or should I leave them alone? Some vendors are thinking about selling in 6 months or 12 months. Maybe I can go and talk to them now. Agents are struggling too, right? Stock levels are crazy low. Yeah. Some agents are doing well. Some agents aren't. Some have left the industry altogether. So if they can find
highly qualified.
So if I can give them something on a plate to go and work for, all they've got to do is get on RP data, filter down if they haven't got them in their database, and then go and door knock or do whatever they do to unearth property. Yeah. So it's being active, very active, but it's presence in the market, right? I've been buying property, professionally for 5 years in the West. So, I'm quite visible. People know who I am. Every agent knows what I'm looking for.
I appreciate that. I guess that's what we're trying to say. Like the shortcut to success is you can I call buyer's agents an insurance policy
definitely.
against maybe overpaying or relationship friction or price friction or trying to negotiate against an expert negotiator in the agent.
Yeah.
So I feel like they're a hedge against that as a buyer's agent. Yes, you pay for the privilege, but if it means that you're saving time or money, then what's the lesser of two evils?
Well, that's it. And I don't really feel that, you know, the upfront cost of a buyer's agent should be thought of as a cost. It should be thought of as an investment in what you're trying to achieve. A good buyer's agent's definitely not going to let you overpay when you're buying a property. If my clients decide that they want to overpay, it's after a very, very long discussion about what we're doing.
Yeah.
But in today's market, you could overpay a little bit, and by the time you've settled and moved in, you've forgotten about it, and property's probably worth more than that. Irrespective of that, it's making sure that there is no relationship friction. That's a huge thing at the moment. Yeah. There's a lot of stress around finances. A lot of people are desperate to buy out of necessity, not want or need. Yeah. If you've sold a property and you're trying to buy a property, it's extremely difficult.
Yeah, well, you're racing against the clock now, right?
Well, exactly right. And if partners aren't on the same page, then they're going to struggle throughout the whole process. Like I often talk to people, you know, before we start, especially couples, that, you know, I become, you know, part of their circle, like not a marriage counsellor, but definitely a punching bag sometimes.
Oh, great.
You know, one person's more comfortable talking to me about things where they don't want to talk to their partner about it, and it sort of comes from both ways, and then it all comes together, and we get to the head of the problem. So having somebody in between that's, you know, got no emotional or bias towards the process, but to help you find the best home for the best possible price is definitely worth the investment, I feel. On top of that, you get an expert negotiator and someone that's going to get you access to stock that you're not going to find yourself most times, right? It's a very small part of the service we bring, but it's something that people are getting more accustomed to, a buyer's agent. A lot of times people are losing at auctions, or properties are being sold to buyer's agents. So people are starting to think, well, hang on, they're getting access now, or, you know, they're buying a lot more property than we are, and it's the same, not the same, but there's, you know, majority of, you know, in the inner west especially, there's only a handful of buyer's agents that are quite active and you know, buying a lot of property. Yeah. So people are naturally drawn to well, hang on, if people are paying them and they're buying property, if it's
and they're highly successful,
exactly right. Like if you can save, you know, 3 or 4 months off your property search, you probably saved yourself. I can't quite a figure, but you've saved yourself money because you're in the market now. Well, you're out of the market and into a home. You know, now that home's starting to hopefully grow in value.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes, the inner west is a bit like you mentioned eastern suburbs before. I mean, we're on the south coast, and sometimes people are attached to a particular suburb. Yeah. You mentioned Leichhardt's home, and Leichhardt's got, you know, Norton Street, or you know, you look at Erskineville, for example, or Newtown. It's like, just want to be in Newtown, and nothing you say will convince me otherwise. And it's like, but we don't have the budget for it, and you're going to have this hard conversation. So I guess there's a few options. One is if you want to live in that particular area, you've got to compromise the type of home that you buy. So maybe it's not a duplex, maybe it's a larger townhouse or a unit, for example, but you're in the area. Are you then having this conversation? So what I'm trying to go is, how do you negotiate this when they're like, if they are fixed to a suburb, but you're like, you're going to compromise the type of home, you're going to outgrow that unit pretty quickly with a small child, or it's a noisy part of Newtown, for example, or Leichhardt. How are you then going, can you try and see it from a different perspective and then coaching or training?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said earlier, it's expectations and compromise. Yeah. If they can't give up on either of them, then I simply won't work with them, because we're going to spend 6 months and get nowhere. Best way to help people understand, you know, what could be better is take them to other places. Yeah. Take them to other suburbs, show them other home types. Yeah. Not, you know, don't go from Newtown out to Drummoyne, for instance, because they're completely different suburbs and demographics and communities, right? But try to find something that has a similar vibe and show them what could be available. Get them to go. I tell all the guys that I work with, go and explore other suburbs. Go buy a coffee and just walk around, walk the streets, drive around, grab the dog, grab the kids, go find a park, talk to people. You see someone in the street, say g'day, talk to them, get a feel for what it could be like, right? Everybody always wants what they want, but if you can't afford it, you can't afford it. That's never going to change, right? And if you can't downgrade what you want in the same suburb to what you could want, then you need to start looking at other suburbs. And it's a pretty frank discussion, and that's what a lot of people need. They need someone to tell them, wake up to yourself.
Yeah, it's a hard one, but it's almost the hard conversations that you need to have.
It is, and it's part of my qualification process, right? If I can't help somebody convince themselves that what they're trying to do isn't going to work, then I don't want to work with them, because it's going to be a big waste of my time, their time, and I've got to have somebody else in my circle that I can actually help.
Yes.
Right. So it's being open. And I tell people I'm an open book. I'm blunt, but I'm transparent. And I'm not going to say stuff just to put you off. I'm going to say stuff to make sure that you understand the process that we're going on. We're going to get to an endpoint. And by doing what we're doing now, we're going to get to an endpoint where we're going to buy a home.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take you, around the bend just to say, oh, look, I've got a client and I'm helping somebody search for a home. I'm well past. I've been doing it too long now. I'm too busy to have people that aren't realistic.
Yeah.
So it's an upfront conversation from the start. You need to set realistic expectations and boundaries, right? So, and if people don't want to do that, then they go back and then you see them out in the marketplace still, 3, 6, 12 months later, and they're still doing the same thing, still trying to buy the same property in the same area with the same budget, increasing home loans or interest rates, dwindling borrowing capacities, but expectations are still the same. So they need to work on themselves. And I help people with that. It's not just buying a property. It's understanding the whole process to buy a property is you need to work on a whole bunch of things. You don't just go out and buy a house. You need to go out and you go through multiple houses to work out what you want, what floor plans work. And, you can often change things within a house to make it more suitable, but you can never change its location, right?
Spot on.
So,
that's exactly it.
So it's talking about hard truths, I'd say.
Nice one. I love it. It's hard conversations, but they're necessary. And if you want to get the outcome, you have to go through a little bit of pain and friction to get there, and it makes it so much more worth it. I think where I probably feel like some clients have maybe been and having worked together with many other buyer's agents, they've gone from pounding the pavement, missing out. Buyer's agent comes along, it's like, great, here you go. And it's happened too quickly. And then they're gone, this company is too good to be true. Exactly. And it's almost self-sabotage at some point. I'm like, guys, this is your insurance policy. Like, you're paid for it.
It's something that I encounter quite a bit.
Yeah.
People have been doing it for 6 months and they can't find anything. And in the first 2 weeks, we find a property that ticks all the boxes, but they try and convince themselves that it's not the right one. Or they don't want to because they didn't get the value out of, It
happened too quickly.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's
too good to be true.
Yeah. And then if they don't buy it, then that becomes, the line in the sand, and they compare everything to it and they never find it again.
Yes.
And then before you know it, you're trying to work out or trying to find something that does suit them the same way the first property did that they didn't buy because they thought it was too early in the piece. But again, that part of the qualification process, if you're on board, we find a property today, we're buying it if it works, right? But then there's a whole bunch of things that I tick off to make sure that works. I always tell my clients or people that are coming on, it's your money, it's your decision, it's your home. And I'm just here to sort of facilitate everything to make sure that we're not leaving any stones unturned or leaving anything out in due diligence. I don't want somebody to go and buy a house that's going to cost them money in the long run, right? Sydney, and if you look historically, look back at the inner west, property has always gone up, right? So as long as you're not buying a property that's got massive issues or could have something happening in terms of a planning, from a planning perspective or anything, you're pretty well okay. Some pockets are much better than others and will always be that. Yeah. But, you're still going to make money in the inner west, I feel. Yeah.
Tightly held. I mean, supply's rare, especially for quality. Will never go out of fashion. No,
and it's like I said, it's central to everything. The public schooling's unreal. We've got some excellent private schools as well. Yeah, we've got hospitals and schools, universities, and everything at our doorstep. Yeah. A lot of people come from the upper and lower North Shore, the eastern suburbs. They sell their home for a lot more money over there and come over into the inner west and get a lot more as well. Correct. Right? So, and they've got a lot more money left over.
That's right. And a bit of a different lifestyle. Well,
absolutely. It is. It's a very, like, parts of the inner west have got a very unique community and different lifestyles, but that's what draws people to them, right? So, and that's why I love the inner west.
I love it.
Big plug for the inner west.
There you go. We'll call this episode the Inner West. Perfect. Hey, mate, I want to say thank you very much for joining us, Hamada. I really appreciate it. Obviously, you fly the flag for the Inner West. Absolutely. It's home, but also I think as a community, it has that vibrancy and attraction to it, mate. Definitely. If you do want to reach out to Hamada and team at BuyerX, we'll include their details. Again, I said plenty of times, any of the partners that we have come on, we don't have commercial relationships. It's each to their own in terms of merit, but what we want to do is showcase people that are doing some incredible work, people that are helping remove some of those pain points that our clients have as well, and just helping you make confident property decisions. So that's a wrap for another episode of the Australian Property Investment Podcast. Until next time, take care.